Today, the Drug Enforcement Administration announced a massive drug bust connected to a major Mexican cartel. 19 people have been charged, including Washingtonians and foreign nationals.
Fox 14 News reporter Nia Wong.
Some of these shipments were so large they were brought here in semi-trucks.
In our very own city, federal agents just uncovered a cartel pipeline so enormous it could have wiped out nearly 7 million people overnight. That's right, enough fentanyl to eliminate every person from Seattle to Tacoma, and then some. No warning, no signs, just devastation waiting in the wings. This isn't a distant disaster. It's a silent war we've been walking through, every day, on sidewalks, in our homes, right next door. And now the truth is out. Seattle woke to chaos as a broad, pre-dawn operation unfolded, with federal agents hitting warehouses, ports, and neighborhoods, exposing what they called a Sinaloa cartel command cell functioning inside the city. The mission, dubbed Operation Take Back America, was an 18-month joint DEA and ICE effort that revealed how deeply cartels had entrenched themselves within U.S. borders. For Seattle, this wasn't just a routine bust. It marked the moment the fentanyl war landed at home. Homeland Security officials also warned that Mexican cartels are increasingly attempting to track, harass, and intimidate immigration and border patrol agents. The statistics told the story more starkly than any headline could, as 19 people tied directly to Mexico's Sinaloa cartel now face 37 federal counts, ranging from
breaks down how federal agents tracked this case from Tacoma to Sinaloa, Mexico.
You're looking at a fraction of the hundreds of pounds of meth and fentanyl seized by the Drug Enforcement Administration and partnering agencies.
Conspiracy and drug trafficking to weapons violations. Arrests were carried out across Seattle, Tacoma, and nearby counties in a coordinated sweep. Agents confiscated 4,165 LEBs of methamphetamine, 269 LEBs of fentanyl, 23 LEBs of cocaine, roughly 6.4 LEBs of heroin, and a cache of 23 firearms, some converted for automatic fire, along with explosive materials found in hidden compartments within suburban garages. Each item wasn't merely contraband. It represented the exposure of an industry's full infrastructure in a single coordinated action. Investigators detailed how the case had been followed from Tacoma all the way to Sinaloa, Mexico, mapping the network's reach. What you're seeing here is only a fraction of the hundreds of pounds of meth and fentanyl seized by the DEA and partner agencies, authorities emphasized. Analysts later estimated the fentanyl alone could have yielded 6.9 million lethal doses, enough to decimate the combined populations of Seattle and Tacoma multiple times over, they said. In total, 51 arrests nationwide were.
This could have killed every person in every community in the Puget Sound region.
Investigators say this ring distributed deadly drugs up the West Coast to Washington.
Were connected to the same supply chain, illustrating how extensive the operation truly was. This takedown wasn't the result of a single lucky raid. It capped an 18-month pursuit spanning multiple states, following encrypted chats, tracing wire transfers, and unpacking a smuggling machine that treated American highways like conveyor belts. The cartel behind it wasn't new. It was the same Sinaloa enterprise that has moved product across borders for decades, adapting faster than any agency could match. But what was uncovered in Seattle wasn't an import. It was a local branch, a command arm that had taken root. The network learned to operate from inside, weaving together local contacts, legitimate trade corridors, and financial channels into a self-sustaining system. Two names surfaced at the center: Rosario Abel Wayne Camargo Bañuelos, 31, and his younger.
A very significant bust, a very significant operation for the Pacific Northwest.
Ream says their investigation started 2 years ago with undercover agents buying drugs in Tacoma to their most recent bust in early August, which stretched across 11 different locations in the Seattle area, not only seizing.
Her brother, Francisco Fernando Camargo Bañuelos, 24, investigators said. As one official put it, this volume of fentanyl could have killed everyone in every community across the Puget Sound region, underscoring the danger. Investigators say this ring pushed deadly narcotics up the West Coast into Washington state. From strongholds in Sinaloa, the brothers oversaw a pipeline that started in Mexico, moved through California's freight hubs, and ended in Washington's port and warehouse districts. They weren't the ones crossing borders with packages. They controlled the personnel and logistics that did it for them, authorities explained. Freight forwarders, trucking outfits, and customs brokers, many of them legitimate on paper, were folded into the scheme's logistics layer. The brothers used encrypted communication channels, routed through dummy accounts and offshore servers, blending their directives into everyday commerce. Semi-trucks carrying fertilizer or household goods also concealed tightly sealed chemical containers, while couriers moved loads along the I-5 corridor backed by routine shipping manifests. Stashes were kept in garages, sheds, and rental homes scattered from Everett to Tacoma, all designed to look unremarkable until agents closed in. Officials called it a very significant bust and a major
The Seattle-Cartel peddles this poison for one reason: to make money. In this case, we hit them where it hurt.
In Seattle,
operation for the Pacific Northwest, reflecting the scale and sophistication involved. DEA leaders said their probe began 2 years ago with undercover buys in Tacoma and culminated in early August with raids spanning 11 separate locations across the Seattle area. In addition to the seizures, both brothers allegedly ran finances through cryptocurrency wallets and shell companies registered in Delaware and Mexico City, giving themselves the veneer of distant investors rather than traffickers, according to investigators. The money trail showed deposits in digital assets, later converted to pesos or laundered through small import-export firms, constantly moving faster than investigators could freeze them, officials said. Among the U.S. arrests were key operatives, each handling critical parts of the pipeline, authorities noted. 1. Isabel Berry Sapon, a 44-year-old trucker, was stopped carrying multi-hundred-pound loads of meth and fentanyl across state lines, agents said. Another, Jose Felix German, a 34-year-old Mexican national deported in 2013, had allegedly returned illegally to manage financial transactions and coordinate local redistribution, according to the charges. Each now faces a mandatory minimum of 10 years in federal prison and potential life sentences under U.S. drug and weapons laws, prosecutors stated. The scale of the network underscored a hard reality. Sinaloa no longer simply smuggled narcotics, it built systems that mirrored legitimate industries. It ran routes, warehouses, and supply chains with corporate-style precision, and the Pacific Northwest quietly emerged as one of its central distribution hubs, investigators said. Seattle and Tacoma, with bustling ports and constant freight traffic, offered ideal cover for what agents termed logistics-based infiltration. As one official bluntly put it, the Sinaloa-Cartel
not only seizing drugs, but guns and $650,000.
Drugs and guns go together, and this group had an arsenal at their disposal.
The 37
cartel peddles poison for one reason: profit, and this operation struck at their pocketbook. Beneath the mechanics lies the public health crisis that made urgency unavoidable, especially in Washington. The overdose data told a grim story of a state under siege, driving the intensity of the response, officials emphasized. In 2023 alone, Washington recorded 3,477 overdose deaths, with 76% tied directly to fentanyl, according to state data. In King County, fatalities crossed 1,000 for the first time, a staggering benchmark. Local authorities described morgues nearing capacity and first responders answering multiple overdose calls every day as the crisis deepened. Federal lab testing of seized counterfeit pills explained why 5 out of 10 contained more than 2 milligrams of fentanyl, enough to kill the average adult within minutes, analysts said. These weren't sold as street narcotics alone, they were disguised as routine medications: Adderall for studying, oxycodone for pain, Xanax for anxiety, making them look harmless.
Seattle now finds itself on notice for immigration enforcement. ICE agents will be ramping up their operations throughout the city, looking to detain and deport people here illegally as part of a targeted crackdown. Good evening, I'm Molly Shen.
To the untrained eye, officials warned. To parents, they looked like ordinary prescriptions. To the DEA, they looked like evidence of a deliberate strategy to recruit new users, agents asserted. The human toll defined Seattle's emergency. Behind every statistic was a family's loss, parents discovering unresponsive children, schools reporting students collapsing in bathrooms, and ERs facing wave after wave tied to counterfeit pills, authorities recounted. Police traced many of these fatalities back to a small set of local distribution cells, dismantled as part of the operation, officials said. Public health data now show fentanyl has surpassed every other cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45, overtaking vehicle accidents, suicide, and gun violence combined, analysts reported. Seattle, long seen as far from border smuggling crossroads, became proof that the crisis is national in scope, not regional. The city's overdose surge mirrored the country's shift from isolated incidents to a systemic catastrophe, investigators argued. Agents seized not only drugs, but also firearms and around $650,000 in cash, highlighting the breadth of the operation. Guns and narcotics often go hand in hand, and this crew had an arsenal at the ready, agents said. The 37 federal counts reflected the multifaceted nature of the enterprise, covering trafficking, weapons, and laundering schemes, prosecutors noted. Operation Take Back America revealed just how seamlessly international crime networks can embed themselves within American cities, authorities said. By the time the first warrants were executed, agents had mapped over a dozen interconnected cells across Seattle, Tacoma, and smaller Puget Sound towns, each handling manufacturing, storage, transport, or street-level distribution. That division of labor made the network more resilient and harder to fully dismantle, officials observed. ICE leaders criticized local governments like Seattle's for what they described as turning a blind eye to repeat offenders, accusing municipalities of releasing known public safety threats back into neighborhoods, including multiple deported cartel-linked suspects who slipped back into Washington undetected.
Count indictment includes drug dealers and a truck driver from Snohomish County, King County, and Mexico. While more than a dozen are in custody, 6 remain on the run, and the DEA says this investigation is ongoing.
The Sinaloa-Cartel.
One ICE field operations director stated bluntly that if local governments refuse to cooperate, federal agents will reallocate resources to enforce the law independently, because public safety cannot be optional, in their words. The agency's tone suggested a durable policy shift aimed at breaking down barriers between federal immigration enforcement and local jurisdictions, not a temporary surge, officials indicated. Seattle suddenly found itself squarely in the crosshairs of stepped-up immigration enforcement. ICE signaled it would escalate operations citywide, aiming to detain and deport people in the country illegally as part of a targeted crackdown, agency officials said. That pledge set the stage for immediate friction with city leadership and community groups, observers noted.
Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell condemned the federal ICE raid, calling it government overreach and reaffirming the city's sanctuary policies. Tensions flared as Harrell's statement drew applause from immigrant advocates, but sparked conflict with federal agencies. By weekend, downtown saw large dueling protests, one group demanding sanctuary protection, the other calling for stricter enforcement and honoring overdose victims. City Hall was the center of a national debate, showcasing America's divide over compassion and control amid the drug crisis. Federal agencies, including DEA, ICE, FBI, and ATF, worked in a tightly coordinated, tech-driven response. Over 600 personnel executed the 36-hour operation, covering city and rural zones, uncovering weapon caches and hazardous labs, and arresting most, but not all suspects. Prosecutors issued the largest indictment in 2 decades, using digital forensics and financial tracking to dismantle cartel networks. Officials hailed the operation for its advanced methods and lasting impact, with the 6.9 million deaths prevented figure echoing nationwide as a symbol of effective action.